Herzlich willkommen beim Finance Executive Podcast, dem Podcast für Finanzverantwortliche aus Scale-up, Mittelstand und Konzernen. Hier geben wir CFOs, VPs und Finance Leads eine Bühne, um ihre Geschichten, Werdegänge und Fachwissen zu teilen. Erfahre, was die Menschen hinter den Zahlen motiviert und welche Themen sie bewegen. Jeder Gast bringt seine individuellen Einblicke mit, die dich inspirieren und fachlich weiterbringen. Tauche ein in die Welt der Finanzführungskräfte, persönlich und praxisnah. Today in the Finance Executive Podcast, we have as a guest Alex Schmidt. Alex works as the head of FP&A at Zeotap, a technology scale-up from Berlin. Originally coming from Paris and the corporate field, he now oversees typical finance functions like setting up a controlling system, long-term and short-term planning tasks, but also investor relations. Although he has a strong accounting and controlling background, he has the opinion that a controlling role and requirements can completely differentiate from the company structure. How he transformed from a corporate controller to a scale-up controller and what it needs to be successful in the new company structure, he will tell later in the specific finance part. One of his personal successes is his support as a controller for this CEO. In his experience, he already supported 4 CEOs, but working today with a founder CEO with a disruptive mindset challenged him the most. However, it was one of the biggest personal developments for him today. Today, he is happy to be a real support for the CEO and the company. As a character, he seems from the outside more as the normal guy. However, he has always been curious and operating in many countries like France, UK, and today in Germany. When I heard his experiences, I would also add that he has developed the skill of being resilient. A nice guy, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation. Welcome, Alex.
Oh, thanks, Tjorve. Thanks. Nice introduction. Yeah.
You're welcome. Still working on English skills, but we will figure that out during the podcast.
Yeah, there's always improvement, room for improvement in English. Yeah. So where I come from in France, people think it's the most difficult language, the richest language, French. Mm-hmm. But in fact, there are 5 times more English words than French words. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And it always surprises French people because they say, but English, it's so easy. It's very, very simple and all this. And very often people put on their CV, French people, mm-hmm. even if they have very basic English, they put bilingual because they think, it's so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like this for a long time.
Yeah.
And so after uni, when I moved to London for my first job, mm-hmm. I could work from day one. I could. My English was very poor, but I could work, send emails, and participate in meetings. Was far from perfect, But when I moved to Germany, that's something different. So I moved to a company where German was in practice the language, and this is another game. Yeah. So you really have to learn the language because you can't just you start on your first job, you come from France, you hardly speak German, and it's not like sit down and off you go. You meetings in German and emails in German. No, it's so you can do that in England, but not in Germany.
However, Alex is also speaking German, so just for the audience, he is also capable of that. And funny thing is, I'm living today in the Arabic Emirates, and here's like English is normal to speak here, right? Mm-hmm. But all customers are German. I would also say like my whole environment of friends and colleagues is German. So you always practice German, and only when going out then speaking sometimes English. So you just have to stay in the training, right? And then it gets like a habit for you and more easy.
Exactly, yes. And I have I think a good piece of advice for the foreigners who are in Berlin and or in Germany and who want to really learn German proper, to speak properly. Because when I moved to Germany the first time, so I was twice in Germany, but the first time I learned German with a group. So a lesson with like a group of 6-7 people. Yeah. Then I got promoted at work, and they offered me one-on-one tuition, and I did more progress in 6 months as in like 2.5 years. Yeah.
Oh, really? So one is that much more valuable.
And I can't say the teacher was different because it was the same teacher. It's just that there was like no progress at all, for 2.5 years, or very, very little progress. And then in 3, 4, 5, 6 months, then it's suddenly progress. Yeah. And she told me those group classes are not efficient at all. Yeah. If you want to really learn, it's a kind of a bit of a waste of time. Yeah. So.
I see that point. I also think that's why one-on-one teachings are some little bit more expensive than the group teachings. But totally makes sense to just have a look at what are the current needs of the one-on-one partner, and where can he now develop on step by step to grow in the skills of speaking.
Exactly. There's that, and there's also the fact that you can't really. You can't, in a group, you can zone out, you can think of other things. But if you have someone in front of you who, like a German teacher, you have to kind of, it's like a wall that you have to climb or
100%. However, we want to jump back to your past, Alex. Today it's about you, about your personal story, how you transformed from a corporate controller into a startup controller, and how you got there today to Germany. But it didn't start in Germany. It started in Paris, and there probably also finished your school exams in the last year. Also in Paris, was it?
Yeah, that was in Paris. So I went to business school. So it's a Université de Dauphine. It's kind of a well-regarded university for finance, for business, for finance. Yeah, and I moved to London quickly after because there was a recession, and a kind of a nasty recession in the early 90s.
Okay.
And so it had to do with German reunification. So there was a boom in Germany after the reunification. So all the banks and the German bank had to increase the interest rates, and because and when a big bank increases interest rates, then the other ones usually have to follow. And the French economy was not so in such a good shape, and with increased rate, then that caused kind of a deep crisis. Yeah, and so it was very difficult to find a job, especially as a new with little experience. Yeah, so I moved to the UK. I found a job at General Electric. So that was, at the time, one of the biggest companies in the world.
It's a big name, yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting what happened to that company, and that's one of the reasons I joined a startup, because I worked for very large companies which were successful at the time, and you think nothing can happen to them. It's like 200,000 people. There was 200,000 people at the time at General Electric. Wow. The company was making a lot of money. And then, and it's the same for the company I worked for as a controller afterwards. It was an investment bank, UBS. You feel safe, but it can go wrong. And I think that could happen to big German companies as well in the future. Yeah. So you think you're safer than in a startup because feels like a big boat and this and if there is a wrong quarter, a weak quarter, you can you can lose your job. But also the company can really go under or decline extremely quickly, and that's like kind of one of the things.
I think one big example, just like from the now what is present at the moment is like Nvidia and DeepSeek. I think that's what it's called. There's just coming up a new technology which is way more cost efficient, and the market value of a big company drops like I don't know how many billions it was, but it was exactly, a lot of money, and that's from one day, from one press release. So it's technology, but also our current like economic developments like are really unstable for many big companies who were stable in the last 20, 50, 100 years or something, but
exactly
now it's getting a little bit less stable.
Because now I work for a startup. It's day to day, it looks unstable, but in fact it's more stable in the sense that you I've been for the same startup for 4 years, so if it's in a growing market, then you're okay. It feels like a roller coaster, but maybe it's more stable. And so if people look for safety, job safety, usually they say, "Oh, don't work for a startup." But I think it depends on the sector you're in, more than the company itself.
That's interesting. What kind of sectors would you like recommend in view to being in a stable startup environment?
So where I work at the moment, it's customer data platform. So again, managing customers' data. But I think in Berlin there's a development in a green technology. Those sectors.
Okay, so like really future-oriented sectors, which are like currently
exactly,
growing, and to position yourself in those sectors.
Yes.
Okay.
So
no, go on.
I read a book at the time. It was called Anti-Fragile by Nicholas Taleb.
I think I heard of it.
Yes, and it was quite interesting because he in that book he kind of gives you strategies to develop resilience in your life, in your organization, and he talks about he takes the example of you. Let's say you're a lamb and you live in a farm, and like every day is the same. Like you get fed and all this. So every day is the same except the last day. The last day is very different from all the other days. And when you are in big companies, when you work for big companies, it's often like this. It feels very safe every day. You feel protected. It's good work-life balance. But then one day something happens to your business unit or your team. And then you haven't developed the skills to, so your skills have kind of atrophied with time.
Wow, was für ein spannender Gast. Solche Finance Executives vom Podcast werden auch beim Finance Executive Summit am 16. Mai 2025 in Berlin mit dabei sein. Die Agenda ist jetzt öffentlich für dich. Praxisnahe, transparente Keynotes von deinen Peers, interaktive Roundtables, Breakout-Sessions und viele weitere Formate erwarten dich dort. Besuch gerne die Webseite über den Link in den Shownotes und werde Teil dieser exklusiven Finance Executive Community. Und jetzt viel Spaß weiterhin mit der Folge. Okay. You have also, when I'm correct, like more background, also in London and everything, and more like big corporates. You named now GE. Were there also other companies where you work for big corporates?
Yeah, so I worked for an investment bank called UBS. So that was at the time a really massive bank, same with tens of thousands of people. And I worked as a controller for one of the business units. And it's interesting because if you it's really a great apprenticeship. So and it's a bit the model, those big banks. You're not treated very well. It's quite it's a competitive environment. But you have mentors, and you have, for example, your boss, and it's when you're younger as an analyst or controller, you are kind of under the apprenticeship of your boss, and they've been promoted. They know best practice, and it's quite great. Yeah. So you learn everything about controlling, about also how to present financial information to senior people. And so what I did there, for example, is I used to present the balance sheet of the business unit to a member of the board, the executive board, so someone very very senior. So when I left the world of big companies, I had a very quite a lot of experience.
I think you can develop and learn like many things in corporate, especially in the beginning. But then at some point you said, okay, corporate life is now enough, and you want to get into other company structures.
Yes, exactly. So I joined. So my history is I worked for corporates. I worked for UBS and then for BASF, so largest chemical company in the world. Yeah. So I worked in accounting, and it's like a very extremely organized world, and it's like a machine. This finance department at BASF. Yeah. And you can learn really a lot. Everything is like there's a Richtlinie, there's hundreds of pages, for every case. Also, people tend to stay long at the company in finance, so there's very knowledgeable people, and the senior people in finance are usually knowledgeable about one area of finance. For example, there was a guy, he was kind of world expert in pension accounting.
Pension accounting, okay.
Yeah. Because companies like BASF, they have huge pension liabilities, towards employees, and it's billions and billions. Yeah. So it sounds a bit of a strange world now, but that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, they are like very specialized, I would say, right? Into like small topics, but the smartest in those topics. What would you mention if you had to, like, probably select 1 to 2 biggest learnings in the corporate world? What would you name?
So one is you can. People say you're just a cog in the wheel, you just have a job to do, and so you can decide to do that, just do your work. But what I find good in those companies is you can expand as well professionally. You can, for example, when I worked for BASF, I started. That was my first job in Germany. I was senior accountant. But then you can develop new things, your own projects, provided they go with the company's strategy. So I became the one of the trainers for international reporting standards. So things like that. You can you can get into kind of not high level, but high profile projects. Like when there's a big merger, you can be involved. If you're in the project, it's interesting. So I became part of the integration team. So so you can decide either you just do your job, or you can do other things. Yeah, and if you do other things, you're not necessarily rewarded. You can be, but at least you kind of expand your horizons. Yeah, you can. This is what I found quite nice.
Would it then also be more like an voluntarily task if you say like, okay, I want to expand my knowledge, my competencies, my skills, and then you just take on like, I don't know, projects that are currently available, and then you go into that projects. But of course, you also have to spend more time in those projects then. And if you're saying now you don't get a voluntary, or like with like, it's not sure if you will get also rewarded from those projects. What you mean by that? So sometimes you just do it for your personal interests, I would say.
Yes. So you can decide. It's not you decide, but you can be approached when there's a difficult project to solve. Usually you don't have the choice of saying no, I don't want to do it. Because then. But you can also develop new things yourself. Like for example, the head office is in Ludwigshafen for finance, the central finance. But in Berlin, they have a center for shared service center for HR, finance, etc. And it's a bit more like transactional in the sense you just book. It's task oriented. But what I did is I with some people, we wanted to develop the profile, raise the profile of the Berlin shared service center. So I suggested teaching, training accountants there in financial reporting, international financial reporting standards. Yeah, so you can do things that align with the strategy of the office, for example, and the reward is that you kind of expand your own knowledge. Yeah.
Okay.
So in my case, there was even more. I got a promotion, and I got to work in the office in Paris for 1 year. So it was nice. Yeah.
Okay, I see. When you look back into your corporate world experiences, what would you mention as the craziest story you have experienced, and in view to what did you learn from that story or situation you were in?
Yeah. So what I was saying. So I worked for UBS, so this investment bank, and it was very successful. So if you look at the results, the profit was very successful. And then in the third quarter of 2007, so that was just before the crisis of 2008, but that was part of the same crisis. Then it announced that it lost 60 billion Swiss francs. So it's the same as 60 billion euros. Yeah. Just one quarter. That was the loss of the bank. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then quickly after that, it was the bank got into really big difficulties, and it had to be bailed out. Yeah. So that's what I meant. It feels very safe, and then
one day,
there is something. There is some risk that wasn't properly assessed, and then suddenly, kind of, it's not like a orderly decline. It's like a implosion, and that's a bit what happened. So what was crazy is when I was there at the peak, the office was the offices were completely full. You sometimes you think, how do people sit down? There's no room, and then 6 months later, you could walk through those massive offices, sometimes like for minutes, and there was nobody, and
Really?
yeah, and when I came back like 3 years later, they even demolished the building because they had was a bit old and there was no use for it. It was a building with like 6-7 stories, and you could put like 3,000 people, and then just like, okay, now it's empty because everyone's been made redundant, and then they just
Yeah.
just
I can imagine that this is like and kind of experience you won't forget. But okay, next to all those corporate experiences, at one day you decide, okay, corporate world is finished now. I want to go to startup scale up. When was it, and why did you decided to move?
I decided to move, and because precisely, that's one of the big learnings in those large companies. There is no long-term safety. Yeah, there is no. So that's what people think, but in fact there is no long-term safety. But also, it's not so exciting when you look at the sectors. You're not really at the forefront of a new world. Whereas, when you work for a startup, you really try new things. So that was the main motivation. Yeah. The other one is when you work as a controller in a startup, the scope of what you do is much larger. So, for example, at UBS, at the investment bank, I was responsible for a budget of it was $1.5 billion,
1.5.
and
Great, yeah.
But the scope was relatively narrow. So it was controlling the typical things that you do in FP&A. So
Yeah.
it was large enough, but like strategic planning, then organizing the budget. It's a kind of a big logistic effort.
Yeah.
And the performance reviews. So you review the recent performance, and you discuss with the managers of the business, and you take corrective action. Whereas in a startup that I joined, and I think in general in startups, you are responsible for the whole company, so the finances of the whole company.
Yeah.
And usually, as a controller or FP&A, you also do investment relations. Business intelligence is also a big
right.
part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then was your first, I would say, like startup step also directly Zeotap?
So I worked for a beauty, kind of sustainable beauty company in EOS. So it's
Yeah, I heard of that. Yeah.
yeah. So we are not the right demographic, but they do beauty, kind of a lip balm for girls that are in their 20s, so it was quite an amazing company because it's almost like a fairy tale. They kind of created a global brand from the US. So it's two people who are quite experienced in marketing, and they were some of the first to use influencer marketing to develop their
really?
product. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was interesting because there were two founders in New York, and one of them was an old Indian guy, and the other one was young. He worked for a bank, and I always thought the older guy brought the money, and the younger guy brought the energy and the. But in fact, it's the other way around. So the younger guy was bringing a lot of money, and the older guy was really the disruptor, the innovator in the company,
really?
and the
Okay,
one.
interesting. Yeah.
And yeah. So the older guy was a marketing specialist, and he was, I don't know, not far from retirement, but he created that company, and it became like a global kind of global brand.
Yeah, I think I'm sure that I heard of it, and I wouldn't say that I'm the target audience of a lipstick now. So, but yeah, sounds and that was your like first station then in the smaller company.
Exactly. Yeah. So they had a big office in New York, Fifth Avenue, and I went there. It was really nice, and but what they wanted to do is they had developed in Europe, but in a kind of very in all direction, So and what I did is I created EU finance function so that
Okay.
the people in that company could see what's the performance of the EU plus UK as a region, yeah. And what I really enjoyed was that I only had a few weeks to create a structure, and this is the kind of thing that. So it was a bit stressful, but quite nice work because you create something from the beginning. Yeah. So and what I did is so they appointed the EU and UK CEO, and I was the finance person for that EU and UK CEO, and in a matter of weeks the function was up and running. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned quite a few things of the differences with large companies. So in a large company, for example, for planning, there's usually an ERP. There's a timetable, and it's like a bit like in the army. Everyone has to follow the timetable. When there's also training and all that. It's very, very orderly. And in that environment, that new environment of a kind of scale up, to prepare a budget, you had to ask for information, the assumptions, the plan of the different people in the business, and the way you collect it. It's very informal, so it can be a spreadsheet, piece of paper, also just a conversation. And you cannot really say, okay, please use this system, and because they won't do it. That's not how people work there. So you have to kind of you have to adapt to that. So you have to build a system which is flexible enough to be able to collect that information. And the other thing is I learned is so we were like 35 people in Europe, and in the beginning I thought, okay, I can teach them quite a lot because I come from a large company and there's a great training and this best practice. But in fact, I realized like almost everyone was very good in that environment. Yeah. So 33 people, and you cannot really hide when you are not good. It's quite quick, so you can quickly see who's slow and who's strong and all this. And
Yeah.
And you have to be extremely pragmatic. So there was something a bit exciting that happened. I mean, exciting for finance. Yeah. So so we had to prepare a budget and show it to the founder who was coming from New York. Yeah. And so the salaries, which is like a really big part of the budget, we had someone from HR, but he came from again, like me, a corporate, but he didn't change his mindset. He said, no, we can't do it so quickly. We have to use, you have to do it this way. What about this? And you know, the rules that you do when you prepare payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So the CEO said, okay, I'm going to do it myself. And she worked on it during the night, and it's a bit like hell, you know, and then when she showed me the numbers the following day, the founder was just waiting in the room next door, and I said to her, but we can't present those personnel cost numbers. They are completely wrong, you know, and because she worked on it at night, and it was like kind of I don't know. In the end, the result wasn't good, and I said to her, okay, we're going to put numbers that look plausible and completely. In fact, they are not really calculated numbers, but they kind of look. And she was like, and I said, yeah, but we have to do this because the group CEO is waiting next door, you know, and we can't say we're not ready. And this, so that's what we ended up doing, you know. So you have to do things like that sometimes, yeah. But of course, it's not. You can say it's fake numbers, but that's how. That's what you learn in a startup. You can put fake numbers as long as they are plausible and they make sense. You know, they have
story.
to. The story, but also they cannot be directionally. They have to be right. Yeah, and yeah.
Interesting. You just started with our topic right now, how you transition from the corporate controller into the startup controller. And you already stated some differences in view to the role, how corporate controller function, like with way more guidelines. You have standard like systems, they are already in work and you have to work on them, and also that you learn there a tool set which is only like working for the big companies but not working for like small companies where you say it's way more dynamic environment. You have to be more pragmatic, and especially in the end you have to adapt and learn to adapt. What would you mention if you say like in view to challenges? You just stated a few, but what kind of more challenges did you face when you transitioned into the startup setting?
So the first one is so when I worked for EOS, so it was a startup scale up, but the management was more like classical. So they came from large companies as well. So like Procter and Gamble, Revlon, and it's people who had big jobs in large companies. They were like vice president for Northern Europe at Revlon, you know, so vice president sales or marketing. But when I worked for my real startup, which was where I am now, you work with a founder who has a typical Berlin startup founder experience, you know, so they so much younger and with they did different roles, but they didn't stay long in roles, but they learned quite a lot. So people who are very well rounded. So my the founder of my company is, he knows a bit of everything. He knows the important things about everything, and he's very quick. Yeah. So very quick mind. Yeah. So I think the way to adapt is to not say, okay, I'm going to show you how it's done. Yeah, so that's not working. But you have to say, okay, I'm going to be useful to to the company. So do the best I can where I can be useful.
Yeah.
That's how. I think that's how you adapt.
Yeah. And what was it in kind of way? What because you got into this new like environment, the startup environment, as we already stated, more dynamic, more disruptive, way more pragmatic than in the corporate field. How did you learn like to adapt with your mindset to the new circumstances there were in the startup environment, just from the mindset? How was it needed to be shifted there?
It's you have to. It's like a really a very very big intellectual shift for a controller, because you have to deal with. You have to understand ambiguity. You have to. So in a large company, when you work as a controller, there's only like one response. You have to deliver numbers, for example, a forecast that will kind of match the reality. So the test of a good forecast is are the results close to what I had forecast. Yeah. But in also there is an existing system, there's existing operations, and you try to increase the profitability of those operations by changing things. So you in detail you need to be on the ground and understand. If I change this, how will it improve my profitability? And it's like you look at the system from outside, and you it's a reality that you observe. Yeah. In a startup, you have to do that, but also you have to. You were talking about the story before, so you also have to think about the survival of the company, and survival is funding. Depends a lot of on funding when you are a new company. So you have to present almost like a new reality. You have to translate a vision into financial numbers, and you have to be able to show, instead of focusing on really the negative of a performance. You have to look at what works, what could work. So this is quite a difference intellectually, I would say.
You're not in this just like an administrator, right? You're just like doing your tasks ABC, but way more thinking and questioning how you are actually at the moment doing it and how you could improve, right? That is what.
Yes, there's how you could improve, but also how you could improve how the company is viewed by investors. Yeah. So we had some poor numbers, for example. That was the actual performance. If you looked at the overall performance, that was, and it's quite normal for a startup. You don't have very good numbers immediately, and the founder told me, so that's how there was tension and sometimes conflict because of that, because I was just showing the reality, and when you're trained as an accountant, you have to be prudent, to look at the glass half empty, but when you are a controller in a startup, you have to be able to do both, to show the glass half empty, but also the the positive side of what the company does. So for example, yes, the overall number was wrong, but he said, okay, let me handle this, and so he usually works in the plane, and when he got off the plane, he showed me, okay, it's exactly the same thing, but I've kind of show it as a matrix. I show the different products we have and the regions, and here you can see, the visually there's more green than red. So and he said, yeah, that's how you can show it to investors, So you show a bit more the detail of what's underneath, and you cut it in different ways, and then it doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, it's smart. It's good
Yeah,
way of
very
storytelling.
smart, yeah. Exactly,
Yeah.
And so the guy. So this is where I struggled at the beginning, because I was trained as an accountant, controller, and all that. But he did a bit of everything. He did like investment banking, like mergers and acquisitions, consulting, management consulting, sales. So yeah.
Okay, I see. That is also like, this is like very valuable, because sales, investment banking, you also have to get the other perspective in, and then based on the perspective, based on their needs and interest, tell the right story for them, right? And
Yes.
that is
Yeah,
what
yeah,
helped
yeah.
in this kind of case. One question I have is, because you already stated like the Richtlinien, the guidelines in the corporate world, it was exactly clear how you should proceed when you have a specific task, right? You do step A, B, C, D. In startups, there is no guideline at all. So how did you experience this contrast when getting like on an empty sheet, and there was like, Alex, yeah, please go for it. Do you
I
have
think
like a specific example or a situation you can remember?
yes. So I think what's important is you need to understand. So I realize there are rules you can break, and others that you can't. So and and I realize that as a controller in a startup, you have to follow some rules 100%. And for example, you can create any key performance indicator and show yeah, it's great, we're doing great, and this, and you can change the definition of the key performance indicator during the year, so that we did it a few times. When it starts getting a bit negative, you change the definition a bit, the scope, and then but there are things that you cannot, you have to follow, like for example the accounting, the financial statements. Yeah. At the end of the day, you have to follow the rules. Otherwise, the books are not signed by the Wirtschaftsprüfer. Yeah. So this is the limit. Yeah. This is the line. Yeah. And luckily, I work for a disruptive founder. But what I find really nice is that he knows where the line is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would really encourage people to. This is very important, yeah, because I couldn't work for someone who would ask me to really cook the books, cook the financial statements. That's just the limit for me as well, yeah. So, and it's possible that a lot of founders don't follow those rules, yeah. But
did you heard of that? Like, for me, it sounds like not as a so smart idea to don't follow like accounting standards or something.
The problem I noticed is that the founder can have a very short-term horizon sometimes, and they say, okay, we'll see, let's do this now because it's in our interest, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing to do to survive, is you. I think there are three things. Yeah. So the first one is you need to have this first principle mindset. So that means because in a large company, you don't have to explain to people what's revenue, what's depreciation, those things, because there's already these guidelines, this kind of a common knowledge. But in a startup, sometimes you have to really explain very elementary concepts. Like for example, why we depreciate machines, computers, things like that. So sometimes the founder will ask you, why do we do this? Or so you have to be able to explain in simple terms why you do this, and you have to go back to the first principles of accounting. And this is one of the learnings as well, because to defend your ground, defend how you prepare the books, you have to be able to explain that to the founder sometimes, and also to the exec team. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know actually how the others do it because some people don't have so much accounting knowledge, and they work as controllers in startups, or sometimes accountants, and
Yeah.
so that's one thing. Those first principle that you have to explain often. Yeah. So that means you really have to understand things fundamentally, which you
Right.
don't always have in a large company. You can just do tasks and do press this button, do this, and the second one is if you're a perfectionist, it's a bit of a weakness in a startup. Yeah. So because there are no regular timetables, you need to go at the pace of the founder. So if he has a meeting with an investor in 1 hour, you have 15 minutes to prepare some numbers, do some projection, yeah. And it has to be good enough, yeah. So
good enough. That's a good
yeah,
statement. Not perfect, but good enough. Yeah.
yeah. So the system needs to be in your head, yeah, so that you can you cannot really rely always on the company's system, and the last thing is you need empathy, because as a controller, FP&A, head of FP&A, you support the founder, who's usually a person who's quite young. They've experienced the company under them has grown. So we are now like a relatively numerous company, and they don't have always the management skills. They don't, they. So it's you always have to have empathy, to think of if I were in their shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good statement. I think empathy is a good word, especially when you come from the corporate background, right? Where everything is ran completely different. Than to have more empathy for a disruptive young founder, probably he has not so much experience, is important to get the right perspective on what is now the founder's challenge and how can I support them as a finance expert. What would you say, like, how can you support such a founder's profile at the very best from your perspective?
sorry, I can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. How can you, you are the finance expert now, right?
Yeah.
The controller who oversees this finance functions. How can you like best support the founders like during, especially probably during such a growth phase?
So you have to make sure they at any time that they understand the financial situation of the company. So how much does the company have? So it's called the runway. How
Yeah.
much can the company survive? How long can the company survive with, let's say, the situation as it is now? So they need to be aware of that. Yeah. So that's one thing. The other thing is you need to be able to explain how the company makes its money. So unit economics. How you think you can improve it. Yeah. And I would say so a lot of what they do is raising finance. So you need to be able to help them with that effort. So that means present credible projections for the company, or projections that the investors can. They need to be credible, but also the investor need to be excited about it. Yeah. So. Not too crazy, not too also not too modest growth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to do this, you need you need to build good financial models. So I would encourage people to really take a course in financial modeling, because then when you have a solid financial model, then you can change the assumptions. And you get a new projection very quickly, and in the heat of the moment, it's necessary when the founder sits with investors, for example. Yeah, so they need to be able to present different projections. Yeah, so yeah, if it takes 1 day, 2 days to update, then it's too slow. Yeah, so.
Okay, yeah, financial modeling sounds logical that this is like a must-have skill at the startup level, where you just have to be way more flexible and adaptive to this always developing circumstances you are in. Have you encountered like conflicts or confrontations with the founders, because you're coming from the completely different background, right? With a different mindset, different belief systems, and also if you then have a young disruptive founder, I would say those are big like differences there in. How did you navigate also those kind of conflicts, if there were something like productive, I would say?
So you it's a bit difficult, but you need to be able to be confrontational with the founder. And we had the first few years we had that wasn't a very nice relation with his controller. That was not was very, very difficult. So you need to be able to be very direct in the tone. And the important thing is, as a controller between you and the founder. So there's the CFO. If you have a strong CFO, it's very easy. So they can look at both perspectives. They can communicate both perspectives. But if the CFO is not very experienced, as a controller, you can really become very. Your position can become a bit problematic, yeah, because you kind of present numbers that can be disappointing, and those founders, they work very hard. They have that vision, and you kind of present a mirror, which is the present mirror of the present, and it's not. Sometimes it's not so nice, yeah, and so you need to be able to convince them that that's the reality. This is how we can get better. This is and one thing I would recommend is you need a seat at the table as a controlling function.
Yeah.
Because if you just prepare numbers, if you don't communicate them yourself, this is the problem in companies that size, scale-ups. The systems are not so good, so you spend a lot of time just preparing the numbers. You deliver them, and you don't have time to really look into them, communicate them, and that's how you can get into trouble. So you need to, as much as possible, to be the one who communicates them, who explains them. And you need as a controller for scale up, you need a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you have a strong CFO, that's okay. You don't need that. But if not, then you need to fight for your seat at the table.
100%. Yeah, I talked with about that with Jana Scharfschwert. You also know her in the last podcast, where it is just important because as a finance person, you also have like in big interest the company's success for the future, and you view it from the perspective basically from numbers, and that's usually not the founder's perspective. And because of that, it's like really important that you can also not only just create the numbers, but also to strategically communicate the numbers into the big picture. And based on that, you also need some soft skills to do that. What would you mention? Like, what are the most important soft skills in that perspective?
In that role, I would say empathy, but I don't know if it's a skill. It's more like a frame of mind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, soft skill. It's a bit difficult to. So you certainly need hard skills, analytical skills, things like that. But I would say soft skills. You need to. And this is where there is still a lot of progress to make, and but not only for me. So the way we communicate, so we are in different contexts, and this is this is what can create tension with, for example, sales team or the founder. So you sit in front of a computer. It's a kind of a controlled environment, and either in an office or you can work remote or both. But the founder is usually, or the salespeople, they are in the train, they are between the taxi and the restaurant to meet a client, and the communication can go wrong just because of different contexts. Yeah, so they need. If you use Slack, for example, you think, okay, I can make I have 2 minutes to answer, but in fact, maybe he doesn't have 2 minutes. Maybe he needs an answer in the next 10 seconds, or so this is how this is something you need to be aware of. Yeah. So.
I would, but I'd definitely say resilient is a big soft skill next to communication as well, right? Because if you cannot like convince the founder how important the momentarily like state in the financials is, and he isn't like that conscious about the financials at the moment, then it could be like really bad for the company if he just has a wrong perception of the whole financials.
Exactly, and so far, so the another problem as well is another source of tension is the awareness of time.
Right.
So for me, 1 month is very short, 1 year is short, but for him it's I don't know, maybe because they do so much, so many different things. For them, 3 months is like
time
2 years for me. So you tell him, okay, we have a runway of 8 months, and then we say, wow, that's great, but when you are in finance, you say, well, yeah, but that goes quickly, 8 months, but they are very optimistic. They can move mountains sometimes, so he always found a solution to to save the company. So it's like 8 months. Okay, yeah, we can. I can turn the boat in less than that, you know.
Yeah. But you always need both perspectives to do the right decision making. But because I think one of founders' problem is to sometimes to be too optimistic, right? And then you need some more reality from the finance perspective, for example. And on the other side, it can be sometimes too pessimistic, probably from the finance perspective, where
Little
you
bit,
need to have the enthusiasm from the founders that he, as you just said, move mountains. Then, okay, interesting. I think one big thing is also in that kind of view, like tools and processes. Like, are there specific tools you use to be like more adaptive, more flexible in the current startup, scale up environment?
So most controllers and CFOs, they still use Excel as the main tool, And the reason for that is because things change. I never found a tool which was so adaptable as Excel. You know, so for example, yesterday with the CFO, we discussed a new compensation plan, new way the salespeople would be compensated, and it's relatively complex. And with Excel, you can kind of translate that complex reality quite into a model quite quickly.
Yeah,
it's like a blank sheet, but with a solution, it's more difficult. Yeah. So for company that size, when you do planning, I've never been convinced with solutions. Yeah. So you can use artificial intelligence for. So I use it quite a lot actually for basically to have a dialogue about how to resolve a planning issue, a financial modeling issue. Yeah. So and so I know people criticize it a lot because of the hallucinations and but ChatGPT, so you can it's very useful to build financial models, but not in the sense that you just give prompts and the model is built. It's more like to say, okay, I have this problem. I'm trying to find what would be the right Excel formula to resolve that problem. You know, this is the complexity of the business is that we collect money in advance, but for some customers we collect it 2 months in advance, for others 6 months, for others 2 years, and how can I model that in the simplest way, the most economical way? So with ChatGPT you can have a dialogue.
It's like an intellectual asset, I would probably describe it, because you can think way more and way faster into complex situations or complex challenges, and probably in that kind of view, because I think there are already some AI tools which are being used in this overall finance functions, but it's like really, really new, and it's not that applicable like in, for example, just do content with ChatGPT. That's
exactly,
way more easy, and it's way better in that kind of sense. But to use it specific now in finance, I think it will develop in the future. But at the moment,
I think it will develop very, very quickly. But what you can do? So, for example, when I worked for the investment bank, that was a long time ago. Yeah. So usually they recruit analysts, and they are kind of bright young people, and the big boss, or CFO or whatever, they will say, okay, can you present or can you prepare something that will show this and that, and so they give instructions that are quite high level, and the guy is intelligent enough to analyst, and they will come up with something, and now with ChatGPT you can have that role of the for example, I don't know, senior banker or CFO, and say, okay, I want to you can give instructions, and ChatGPT will give you a result, or we can make a presentation which which is
Right.
good. Yeah. The problem is the repeatability. So that's why it's for controlling. It's not there yet, because so he can give you a result or a presentation once, but he cannot repeat it. It's more difficult for ChatGPT to repeat it, to produce it on a regular basis. Yeah. So the cadence is not would be missing. Yeah.
You're right. But we will find out in the future what there is coming, so you can use it, have a more easily life in finance. Looking back now to your
Not too easy, I
transition,
hope.
not too easy. It has to be, in some kind of sense, be adventurous, right?
Yeah.
And always be curious. But now looking back, your transition from corporate controller to startup controller, what are the key lessons you have learned during this transition?
So the main thing is people always use this word to professionalize the function in a startup, and to make it more professional, more. But you shouldn't go with that frame of mind, because I've realized it's a different world in the end. So the goals are different than in a corporate. Yeah, the middle term goals. So you cannot go and say I'm going to teach teach them how to do it. Yeah. Also, the solution is not proved yet, so you have to approach things differently. So when you work for as a controller for a startup, you don't have a product that's necessarily already profitable. Yeah. And the other learning is you have more impact on the company's direction, I think, as a controller than when you work for a large company, and sometimes you have impact on existential issues. So if you do a wrong cash forecast, for example, can get very serious. Because the founder will rely on that, so the exec team will rely on the work you produce. Yeah. So you have more responsibilities, I would say. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
So.
Thank you for this. Many examples you mentioned, and also your transformation. I would give it that title, from the corporate controller to the startup controller, and also, those lessons learned and the competencies you learned along the way. I think it's really interesting for everyone who has or has in mind to get along the same story. And it was very helpful. Now in the end, for this podcast episode, we always have our quick fire questions, where we just have a short question answer game. And I would like to start with the following question: which purchase worth maximum of €100 has had the most positive impact on you in the last 6 months?
It was more than €100, but I bought a set of weights, and they are modulable, so you can change the weight
Right.
very quickly. So it doesn't take much space. it was a few €100, but you can keep it for many years. And as a controller, you need to be in every job. But as a controller, you need to be fit, and especially the head, So,
Yeah.
and when I stopped doing weights, I lost some of my fitness.
Also mentally.
Also a little bit mentally, because you're a bit less energetic, and
yeah, you're right.
but
You're right. Yeah.
but with that, I think it's one of the best investments. Yeah.
Yeah, same. That's a really good investment, 100%. What is your favorite software tool in your daily work?
Yeah, I use Excel, and I know there's a kind of a religious war between Excel and Google Sheets, and I'm more the Excel type. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm 100 times more productive with Excel.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Then go with that, I would say, right? Is there a book you would recommend for everyone here?
I'm reading a book. It's called Lights Out, and it's about my former employer, General Electric, and it's a bit the story of my career. And big learning is that you work for very large companies. At the time, they are kind of invincible, and then suddenly they disappear, or they and that's the story. Lights Out. It's the story of the decline of GE. So how it was the star of the stock exchange, New York Stock Exchange. Now it's not even in the Dow Jones. Yeah, and it took just a few years, and so after 100 years,
Crazy. It's not like really easy to understand that on a rational basis, right? Because you think it's so big, you have so much trust, and also in just the name, and then poof, it goes
the
away,
name,
right?
the money, they have a lot of
Yeah.
money as well, and then
Okay. What do you do to switch off after a stressful day?
so I have a second career as a pianist, so classical,
Really?
classical music. Yeah.
That's the instrument I want to learn someday. If I have
Yes.
more time, then it is definitely the piano.
Yeah, I
Right?
have a couple of YouTube. I can show you. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Because if I start it, then I will watch it so you can teach. All right, cool, cool. So
Yeah.
you play piano after the
Yeah.
stressful work day. Um, okay. Do you have a morning routine that you never skip?
So for me, it's important to do sports in the morning, like, running or weights, and I think it's more like kind of professional oriented. I don't know how people manage to. You have people in finance, in sometimes in high profile jobs, and they never do sport. They eat whatever they want, and still they can function. And
Yeah,
that's not me. So I need to.
100% also not me, because if I don't like eat right or not moving my body for 7 days, then I feel just drained and not motivated at all. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Where can our listeners find more about you and also yourself?
Where can they find more about me?
Yeah, or contact you if they have questions for a topic here you discussed. Where can they get in touch with you?
So on LinkedIn, there's yeah. I'm not so
LinkedIn.
active, but
But answering messages if they are
yeah.
coming some. Perfect. Alex, thank you so much for your attendance here. Thank you so much for sharing that transparent your thoughts, your experiences, and also your knowledge about the transition from the corporate controller to the scale up controller. It was a pleasure, and hopefully see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Tjorve, and thank you for creating this kind of comfortable environment. Yeah, because that's the first time I did something like this. So you have a very inclusive manner. Very it's quite
thank you.
Quite nice. So, yeah. All right.
See you soon.
See you soon. Yeah. Bye.
Das war es mit dieser Folge des Finance Executive Podcast. Ich hoffe, du konntest wertvolle Einblicke gewinnen. Wenn du mehr solcher Gespräche und tiefgehende Analysen erleben möchtest, darfst du auf keinen Fall den Finance Executive Summit verpassen. Das exklusivste, inhaltlich hochwertigste und interaktivste Eventformat für CFOs, VPs und Finance Leads im Dachraum. Alle Infos dazu findest du in den Shownotes. Vielen Dank fürs Zuhören und bis zur nächsten Episode.